All right, welcome to the OFX podcast. I'm Dave Claxton. Along with me, returning, not as always, but returning is the Rocky Mountain Retreat racer, Bethany McChesney. And to Bethany's surprise, special guest, Lauren Weeks.
That was a really good alliteration. I liked that one.
We really do need to get you one of the shirts she has. The shirt was one of the best shirts we made. And I think there's like 15 or 20 different names on the back of it over.
I honestly don't know how you come up with new ones every time.
I'm sure I must have repeated at least bits and pieces here and there.
Very rarely. I don't know.
There was a while where actually at the beginning where I actually kept track. Like I would write them down to try to avoid. And now I'm just like, oh, screw it. There's been so many. I'm bound to repeat something. And
Yeah.
then it was the one thing where I did a different thing completely. And I don't know. But yeah, well, we got to be up to like 100 and this. So this is like episode 194. And I would say we missed about the first three episodes. That didn't happen because it just kind of happened organically. And
Yeah.
so we're probably looking, and then she's missed a couple, like over 190 different names.
You
Yeah.
might have the most names of anybody in the world.
Oh, I might. That's good.
Anyway, the shirt has a lot of my favorites on it. The Fleet-Footed Felon was one of my favorites.
hmm
That one.
Yeah, yeah, and that was one of the first ones out of nowhere. But anyway, um, yeah,
Did you
okay.
steal a podium from someone?
Oh no, tell the
No,
story. You could
it was
retell this story. It's
the
been a long time.
was this a COVID story when the cops were called?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It was during COVID and our like you were allowed to have like a family that was in your bubble or whatever we called it. And we went over to their house and the neighbors called the cops on us.
That's another level.
Oh
That's
yeah.
It just so
it,
just shows in
it's
society.
so amazing how like sometimes people care about things that you would never expect them to care about, nor does it have anything to like you're not harming them in any way. It's wild.
Oh yeah.
It was a strange time. There's a
Oh,
lot of strange things.
hang on. I think
Oh,
my kid's here to pick up the saxophone. Just a second.
awesome. All right. Well, she's picking up saxophones. I'm going to talk to Lauren. Lauren, how's it feel to be back home?
Oh, it's so nice. I mean, it was really nice being in Nice. But it also like anybody who has a toddler, I'm sure understands like the routine is just so nice to get back to and like getting her back on a nap schedule and a feeding schedule um and she's just happier because she's not jet lagged anymore. So no, it's really nice to be home.
I can't imagine. I never traveled like plane flights with my kids when they were that young. It wasn't until they were almost teenagers that we took like a flight with them because I'm a road trip guy. And oh, and it sucked then. Like I couldn't I couldn't imagine when you're dealing with what and that far and that long, like you're just stuck in that little cabin and there's nothing you can do when things go south.
She was a trooper though. I will say like for the length of time that we were traveling, I don't think I could have asked for any more. Like she was a trooper. Like sure there were moments of like distress and hunger and tension, but like I've seen way worse out of adults. So she all things considered, she did very, very well.
Well, that was yeah, that's it's impressive because that's a long trip. All right. So, Beth, since you're completely unprepared for this, do you want to start? You got any questions for Lauren? I like to throw Beth to the wolves.
I mean, I haven't really heard you speak much about your race at Worlds. So my biggest question would just be like the curiosity around kind of what happened when you hit the sled push. So you took it out as Lauren does from
Yes,
the
Lauren
beginning.
does.
Well, but no one's shocked when Lauren takes it out hot. And but yeah, then what really then happened when you hit that sled push? Because it seemed to be where the race really changed for you.
So slightly off topic. I was looking back at one of like the Vegas race, and Dave was commenting that one as well. And once again, I've got like a very large belly, and I'm still trying
Oh
to
yeah.
out as hard as I can, which just watching it, like I can't do anything but laugh. Um I actually didn't feel for this particular, and I know it looks like it. I didn't feel like we took it out that hot. Granted, I'm not wearing a watch, so I don't have any data to back that up. Um I I felt like we were at a pretty comfortable clip while we were going. Um but somebody with a watch could probably tell you better than I can. Yeah, the sled push seemed pretty fatiguing. I kind of expected the sleds to feel heavier than they have been at the venues, just because I knew that it was a larger and older venue. Anthony had done quite a bit of research into the venue itself, and we knew that the ceiling was going to have a lot of windows. So we expected there to be a ton of heat, a ton of humidity, which is going to make the sleds also just feel a little bit harder because things are just going to stick a little bit more. Um, so I was anticipating them to feel heavier than maybe they have in the past couple races. Um, the sled push was hard, and it was definitely like tough to run after, but we've had like hard sled pushes before, and usually like sometimes it only takes a lap, sometimes it might take a whole length to kind of get your feet back under you and get back into a race mode. Usually at this point, because we've done so many races, it doesn't take you completely out of a race. It was more the sled pull that kind of just stopped me in my tracks.
So like Lauren would never say this because she's classy and and all that stuff. But luckily I'm not. And I would totally say you got a shit lane. And it happens, right? Like we've seen it time and time again. We've seen venue to venue sled pushes and pulls be different, but we've also seen lane to lane. And it's an issue that Hyrox has. I'll be honest, I'm not sure how they fix it. Not 100%. And I don't like to do that. I don't like to point out things that I think are wrong without offering at least some form of a remedy. But to me, when I was watching, that was what I said was, fuck, she got a shit lane. And it happens, right? So I mean, I know you would never say that. That's not something that you do. So I don't want you to verify that or confirm that. That was just my take watching is when when I look at the times and I see the difference between your normal sled work and what happened there, and I see the other lady's differences, it looked like you got a bad draw. And so, but that's not for you to say. That's just for me to throw it there and to say to Beth. So if you want, you can just move to the next zone.
I think the only thing I'll say is like I did watch back the race, and like the people I was racing against were on an incredible level that day. So whether or not there was something going on with the sleds, I can't say that the results would have ended up any different
No, no.
than what they did. And people had like multiple people had some like very incredible performances. Uh, I would like Vivian was a big one, and I like her day is coming. I think she will be standing on the top of that podium potentially as soon as next year. Like it was because I had a different vantage point in terms of this race than I often do, and it was like wild to see where and how she was making up time. It was very impressive.
Do you remember our take on Vivian from like a couple of years ago, Beth?
Just for being super underrated, but
We said, both of us, we said back then was Vivian this year is good. Vivian next year is going to be scary. Vivian the following year is going to be freaking dominant. And she has followed that. Like,
And to give credit, like one to her, like obviously she's putting the work in and she's doing incredible, and she has like even I hate to say it, but she has like a higher genetic potential, I think, than a lot of people. But her coach, Ian, has figured out a way to allow her to train running at a higher volume than she's been able to in a long time, which is allowing her to continue to progress. And I don't think that's an easy thing to do, to like take somebody who comes from um, a lot of injuries surrounding running and figure out a way to structure it so that they are able to continue to progress and at like such a high level. So kudos to Ian as well.
Yeah, and by the way, we're putting it out, not taking anything away from Meg. Meg was a freaking machine and deserves every bit of accolade she's getting and deserves everything. She was unbelievable that day, like just on fire. So when I say you got a shit lane, I believe that, but I also believe that that doesn't mean Meg didn't deserve the win. That doesn't mean everybody else didn't deserve the race they did. So that's just where I'm at. I think you just got a bad draw. But like I said, that's me answering Lauren's question from my perspective. So sorry, Beth. You want to keep going?
Yeah, well, and like other women too, I would say the one that shocked me the most who was up at the front there was Kate Davey, who again, like a phenomenal athlete, but to see her right in there coming in second place into the rowers, I was completely shocked. And again, I don't if lanes are uneven, she smashed that sled pull, and again, as one of the smaller athletes, probably the smallest athlete on that start line, yeah, kind of came out of nowhere in that one for me. So same
She
thing. Some women just
And I talked to her like after the race too. She thought she ran an extra lap going into the row because like when she sat down and she was sitting in second, she's like, there's no way this is possible. I was like, don't ever think that. Like you obviously worked to get to that spot. Like you did not run an extra lap. Like don't ever let that come into your head. But
Mhm,
she even surprised herself.
mhm.
Well,
So
the increase has been easily noticeable, and I mean, like you can draw that direct correlation. But Bethany, I'm just surprised you're surprised. I mean, you've seen the coaching, like you should know what she's going through.
Oh yeah, I mean, I obviously follow her coaching program too, but yeah, but I mean, it's there's so much too that goes around like peaking at the right time, not overtraining. Like I think as athletes, we're so good at prioritizing the training piece, but like truly tapering and peaking at the right time. And our the hybrid season is so long and we race so often, so to be at your absolute best when it really matters is it's quite a trick. So, sometimes you roll the dice with being overtrained and under tapered. And so, yeah, everything has to come together at the right time.
yeah, it's definitely super challenging, and you can even see that um, just with people like on the course. Obviously, everybody's worked so hard to be there, and there were some athletes that probably didn't have the day that they wanted, but it doesn't mean that like they don't belong on that start line. It's just somewhere along the way, like something could happen leading up to the race, something could happen during the race. There was one of the athletes I had talked to, she has trouble regulating her blood sugar, and it just like severely tanked in the middle of the race. And that's really not something that you can come back from in the middle of such a high effort race. So if you don't already have something on hand that you can try and combat that like as quickly as possible, it's going to be hard to finish.
Well, and like again, back to tapering and stuff too, you have to think the way the qualification worked was you had people 2 weeks before, 4 weeks before who had to have the race of their life at an LCQ in order to qualify. So now you're kind of asking people to throw in a big taper to just get themselves to this race and then kind of go back to it again and then have another big taper. So it's not a super ideal situation here for an 80-minute race, or well, sorry, 60-minute for you guys. I always call Hyrox an 80-minute race. Um, but yeah, where you've had to put in the race of your life 2 or 3 weeks before, and then you have to repeat it. So we did see a lot of people who had like incredible LCQs, and they had to make that happen, and then to just turn around and do it again that's really not easy.
No, I ideally, I'd say 6 weeks out would be a good time for the LCQ. It gives
Mhm.
them at least more time to recover, like take a recovery week and then like get back into some normal training and then do another taper. But I agree, 3 weeks is a tall ask for those athletes.
In setting up the schedule, though, so if you're setting up the schedule and you say like the 6 weeks would be good from the LCQ, whether it be one or two or whatever the case may be, um, does that say really they'll make it difficult for let's just hypothetically say you go out the first major, qualify there. Does that make it harder for you to control the length of your season in your training? Or, or do you just kind of drop off and then re ramp up and then taper at the end again at that 6 weeks out or whatever, or work from there?
So I mean, like personally, I may approach it differently this year than I did last year. Obviously, I'm going into every race trying to do as well as I can, but maybe in training, I'm not having my volume or intensity to as high as I would as I'm getting closer, like in closer months to a world championship. Um, I would love to know what, I think it really depends on what they plan on doing with their schedule. So if they continue to go with like the four majors again, I think one option could be to like really try and peak for an early one and then potentially not do some in the middle and then get another one to get under your belt. But it's really gonna depend on when and what that schedule looks like.
So back to your race, after, you had a drop off, I believe it was from second to eighth for a brief moment and then into seventh. I know you say, and I think I heard you say this on Running Public, that you've never had a bad race because as long as the effort level was there, it was a good race. At any point, did this thing feel like it was going to be a bad race?
No, because I still hadn't mentally checked out. I can't control necessarily what any other athlete is doing, but I know that if I can push until that very last second, then I'm doing everything in my control to 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 just kind of cross that finish line and be happy with what I had done. If I had like backed off for even a second, I think I would be disappointed in myself because like that, I mean, a second in this race could would have cost me.
Hmm.
Uh, so I think like just not allowing space for yourself to feel sorry for where you're at or for like having challenges in your way or struggling, just like not allowing space for that was really important.
Do you, and a lot of athletes, they're using sports psychologists and everything now. And I know I used to do this a lot, especially when I was racing track. Do you mentally prepare for what happens when?
Um, Maybe in some situations, but I definitely maybe I should expand the things that could happen because I like I'm sure so in Lauren's case she well I don't even think she knows exactly what happened but she had like an acute injury to her calf. That's not something I had even ever thought through her process of like what would I do in this situation. So um again it's just more about experience and not even just my experiences but the experiences of the other people that I'm racing with and even just throughout the community like listening to some of the things that people are going through and then making a plan off of that because I'm definitely not creative enough to think of all the different things that could happen. But I for the easy ones like off the tip of your tongue, yes. Like I think through if this happens, what am I going to do?
And I want to take a quick side turn to something that would seem complete deviation away from the race, but at the same time is very related to what you just said. Recently just watched a YouTube video about Emma Lawson. And well, that wasn't entirely about Emma Lawson, but it addressed her by her coach on the way back from the semifinals and how she almost didn't compete this year because of, we'll call it mental, I don't even want to use the word issues, but whatever, a state of mind, something along that lines. I don't know what would be the politically correct term to use. And this is something that we're seeing a lot, and seemingly especially in young women. And I'm just curious, both of you. I don't know if you and I have ever completely addressed it at all, Beth, but I know we've touched on it. But is it, like when you mention sports psychologist, is this something that these, especially young women, need to have to have kind of provided to them as a, not provided to them, but offered to them as an outlet or as a part of their training regimen, like part of the preparation, because they are being put on such pressure at such a young age. So what do you think? Oh, like, I guess whoever wants to go first.
Um, you're seeing this a lot in CrossFit, and it is also a young sport, but it is quite a bit older than Hyrox. So um, I don't think we've seen a ton of it yet, but that doesn't mean that it's not coming. I would love to be able to say that, yeah, let's offer help and sports psychologists to younger athletes, not just women, just younger athletes coming into the sport so they can have like just tools, like access to tools on how to deal with different situations and maybe different pressures. I just don't know if that's ever going to be feasible. So I think it's more the responsibility of those of us that are already in the space to create like a safe space and a safe community for the people that are coming up into it. I understand that like there's going to be personas within sport because that's what makes it exciting, but at the same time, I think mental health is way more important. So I think not being intimidating to the people that are coming in is just, I don't know, it's just more, I just think it's more important than trying to create this abrasive and untouchable persona.
Well, and I think too, an athlete, uh, like good coaches, coaching encompasses the psychology of racing and performance as well. So I think if it's something that you're really struggling with, I think finding yourself a good coach who can help you through that as well and putting things into perspective. Um, like I know in when I was in university and I was seeing a sports psychologist, some of the issues that I was having too was my coach at the time, there was way too far of a focus on winning at all costs. So again, as a young, impressionable athlete who, they already put enough pressure on themselves, and you see this in the CrossFit world. And again, they're young. Like Emma Lawson is young still in the grand scale of things, and would already put enough pressure on herself. So you have to balance out putting everything into perspective. And again, we're talking sport, so always having the reminder like at the end of the day we're doing this for fun. And I think too, Hyrox isn't quite where CrossFit is as far as the money and the, I will call it fame, I suppose, that some of these athletes in the CrossFit world do when you just think about like the number of followers that some of the people at the top of the CrossFit world have, and then their potential then for endorsements and sponsorship. So that does put a lot of pressure on really young athletes who are already putting a lot on themselves too. So I think a good coach makes the world of difference and can be that gap between, do we need a sports psychologist? Absolutely. That would be phenomenal. It helped me a lot when I was in university. But a really good coach can also kind of be that person when it's needed as well, if they can have a good handle on keeping the perspective for the athlete, that the end of the day, why are we doing this? And giving them different strategies for how to handle the pressure and keep in the zone and keep focused within the race and all these different things that a good coach will just help you through.
So from that, I can draw, and to no surprise, Lauren thinks that the veterans need to be nicer, and Bethany thinks that Emma's coach sucks. So,
Ah, I don't
but
even know. I'm not.
so no, but how about I? Because if I throw this twist at you, and I'll put it out there, and I'm going to draw a couple of comparisons as well while I do this. So if I'm Tia Toomey and Emma Lawson is a threat, and we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, I'm gonna mentally break every one of those little girls I can. And that back in my day,
Mhm.
that was sport. I mean, you go watch, and this is one of the comparisons I'm gonna make. Think back to Pumping Iron with Arnold Schwarzenegger. I don't know if you've ever watched it, but there's a moment where they address in that movie where Arnold just completely destroys Lou Ferrigno's mind. And it's just a young, impressionable guy who is a threat, and Arnold knows he's a threat, and he's like, I'm just going to play mind games with this kid until he is so frazzled he can't possibly beat me. And is that
This used to happen in the track world with me. I have
like,
some
is
like
that a
legitimate track like horror stories too, where another team from a university in Ontario, where the coaches would plant themselves on cross country courses, and when you ran by, they would say things like, "You're dying. You look like trash." Like they would yell it at me, and I'm like, "I'm feeling great."
God.
Like so, like you, so it happens. It does happen, and there's no money on the line. Well, just their
That's
fame.
unacceptable.
Totally unacceptable. Yeah.
but this was how sport was done, right? This is how it was done. It was as much a mind game
Hmm.
to make up sometimes for maybe a physical lacking. And so what I'm saying is I mean I know Lauren, you're feeling like this is not something we should ever do. This is a horrible thing. But is that what is that possibly, and I'm not accusing Tia Claire Toomey of doing this, I'm just using her as an example. But is that what's happening to some of these young women is that they are getting, you know, mentally played by veterans? Is that a possibility?
I really hope not. I think I'm I'm gonna choose to believe that that's not happening. I know in our sport, especially on the women's side, I think all of the women are doing a really good job of being inclusive, and helping with newer athletes that are coming in. I won't speak necessarily on the men's side, but on
I
the
was
women's
gonna
side,
say, how's the men's side look?
um, it's doing really well. I'm a huge CrossFit fan. I follow it very, very closely. I From the outside looking in, I haven't seen a ton of that. I hope that that's not there. What I have seen a lot of is you were talking about like all these young girls that have tons and tons of followers because CrossFit is so big. I've seen like these old men trolls like
Oh,
going in like to their socials and just like completely demeaning them and destroying them, and it like if there's anything, there's a few things that make me angry, but like I get so mad when I see that because like some of them are 16 to 18-year-old
Yeah.
girls. Like, are you kidding me? Like, what? Like just some of the comments that you see on these young women that are just out there like trying to do the best that they can with what they have, and then there's these middle-aged men coming in and trolling them. So I can't imagine what it must be like to be like that young with so many eyes on you, and not just one, but like many people just trolling you. I can't I think it's more coming from that than maybe their competitors.
yeah, I think you're probably exactly right. And tied to social media in the same thing is the ever-present pressure to use it financially as a means of income. So not only do you have to perform on the competition floor, but you need to perform on social media in order to make yourself like, Danny Spiegel, where you're going to be able to monetize. You know what I mean? It's like, somebody you're going to be able to monetize your social media presence because let's be honest, your CrossFit career, no matter how good you are, is not going to be that long where it's financially payable. And even if you are that great, I mean, you got to be like top five to make a decent living at it. So if you're not maximizing your social media, you're not making money, and then you're working, and then you're not training full time, and then and the cycle of not being able to keep up puts more and more pressure, and that's where it all goes. I hope that these young women do get good coaching, like Beth says, good mentorship, like you say, and that they not so much that the sports psychologists are provided for them, but that is a road that they are educated on and that they learn that can be an option for them to do. And I hope that Tia is not mentally crushing everybody because that would just it would be mean, but it would be what I would do. No.
She has, in her proven camp, she has Olivia Kerstetter. So like I really hope that she's taking her under her wing as like one of the youngest female competitors and like helping guide her.
I'm sure she is. I just use her name because that's the top of the well, I guess not really. Laura Horvath is still the top of the mountain right now, technically. And I could never see Laura doing that. I really like her.
Mhm.
She's
She's
awesome. What's
she's
that?
like she's like got a very dry sense of humor and it's very entertaining.
Oh yeah. I think she's hilarious. I think she's very smart, very witty. And just for God's sakes, get those handstand push-ups down and then keep winning.
Yeah.
All right, all right. Sorry, like I said, it was off topic, but it was relevant. It wasn't roller coasters and stuff. It was relevant. Um, so yeah, back to your race. So you're working your way back. Did at any point during the race when you're working, you were getting your comeback in that did you think kind of like a goal or where I can go, or is it just push as hard as you possibly can and get to wherever you end up?
Um, yes to both. Um, so yes, I'm gonna push, and as I had said earlier, I'm gonna push as hard as I can. I can control my effort. I can't control anybody else's. So at the end of the day, like if everybody else is nailing what they're doing, then no, I'm not gonna catch them. But like also, we don't all have our day on the day, so who knows? I can catch some of them. If like somebody's faltering somewhere and if I'm not willing to put in the work and the effort, then I don't I need to I wouldn't ever have the opportunity if I'm not willing to try. So um Anthony was there, and he was like set on a corner of the race, and he would yell to me the gap that was in between myself and the person ahead of me, as well as the gap between myself and second. So I was able to understand that it was closing, whether or not I was closing fast enough was yet to be determined until the race was over, but it was encouraging to hear that I was making progress with each lap.
When you finally got to the wall balls, now going into the wall balls, at that point, obviously Meg is it's not happening. Um,
Pretty sure
but
she was done before I got
yeah,
there.
yeah, like I said. So that was a non-conversation point. But the other women that came in ahead of you, statistically, you have much better wall balls than they do. Was that in your mind? And was it like, if I just go unbroken here, who knows how many of them I can catch?
Um, I mean, yes, I know that like wall balls is usually a strength station for me. Um, and I knew it was I didn't know what rep Linda or Viola was on, because they were a little bit too far to my right. But I was stationed right next to Vivian, so I knew what rep she was on when I came in. I could see hers. So I wasn't 100% sure if I could catch any of them. Kind of depended on how their wobbles were going to go, but I did know it was possible. Um, and and I was willing to sell out to the best of my ability, and just kind of see where it would end up. I talked with Matt earlier today too, and I had said I don't know where the timing mat is when we finish. I don't know if it's at the bottom of the ramp or the top. Um, and and when I finish, like all three of us are like finishing, myself, Vivian, and Viola, are like at almost the exact same rep, and we're going for a run, and we're running up the ramp, and Viola starts like walking, and I'm like, "You gotta go!" Like I don't know where the end is. Like I don't know if we're done. Like there's other people behind us. I don't wanna like just gap you by half a second, like going up the ramp, but I also cannot slow down because there's people right behind us. I was like, well, go, like you got to keep running. Like you just so maybe the timing mat's on the bottom. I don't know because the timing chip registered us, I think, at the exact same time. Um, but yeah, until I know for sure where the finish line is, you, I'm running all the way up that ramp, and I need everybody else to too.
Smash right into the video screen.
Right, all the way through.
So then you had the situation at the end. You had a no rep at the very last one, and so did Viola. Is that correct? Or
Um,
Vivian did?
so they called myself and Viola back for the rep, and I went back and I did do another wall ball, and the judge told me, no, not you, the other one. They're like, that's not your screen.
All you Americans look the same.
Yeah. I'm also 5'10" and um so by that time, because I think what they were gonna do is just like reclock our times, but by that time Vivian had been laying down for a minute and like she didn't even know that she had a no rep. So that's obviously not fair.
Yeah.
So what they ended up doing, because they called the wrong two athletes back, is they just gave both of them a 5-second penalty
Yeah,
instead of adding the time of them running back to the wall ball and then going back.
so the long and the short of it was um Viola and Vivian both got the 5 second penalty. But the reason Vivian ends up placing ahead of Viola is because Viola also had a 3 second penalty for leaving the ski erg early. Um, and Lauren did not have a no rep on the wall ball and did not have a penalty. So that's how she ended up in the second spot.
I
Do you
wish it
think,
looked cleaner,
pardon me?
but said I wish it looked a little bit cleaner, but
So is the no rep confusion really because of the new system? So or was it the judge that determined that the last rep didn't count?
so I should have told Matt this earlier before. I don't even think this was said anywhere, and it would probably clarify a lot. We were told in the briefing that our judge is going to be the final count, and they will tap you when you are done. They will physically touch you on your shoulder when you've done your 100, and then you can run off. My judge tapped me and I ran. I'm assuming Viola and Vivian just ran.
Now, so that's the first I've heard the tap thing. Went back and watched it, and I really focusing on those two, and I did not see any tap from both of them. So I think you're right on that one. I think they did not. What I
But it's
saw
also
happen,
like when they said it in the briefing, like there was a lot going on. People were talking. There's a chance that multiple athletes didn't even hear that we were supposed to wait for our judge to tap us before we ran off. Um, so there's that possibility as well. Because it wasn't like written in a rule book, it was
no.
vocally told to us.
Well, when I watched, like I said, what I saw from both Viola and Vivian was they threw their last wall ball. The screen flashed to 100. They ran, flashed back to 99. Like it literally flashed there for an instant, but I assume they were watching it and went. So I never saw any judge tap them. But you did see the judges immediately as they run off, trying to like, whoa, 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 get them back. Um, it was a lot of confusion.
I was confused.
Everybody's
And
very confused. Vivian's post race was quite funny because she was like, I'm not entirely sure what just happened. But in true Vivian form, she carried it through well. Um, are you placing aside? Do you think the way it worked out was fair?
um uh in terms of like how they figured out the wall ball stuff.
Yeah, because like I don't think they had announced beforehand that this 5 second penalty was a possibility for missing a rep at the end. Correct me if I'm wrong. Um, so do you think that what they did there was actually a fair thing? I think in my mind, you had no rep at the end, which means you would have crossed the line. So I think that your second place is where you belong. My thing is, do you think that the 5 second penalty is a decent thing even going forward to have in place?
Before I answer, do you think it's too much or too little? I'm curious.
Now you're totally me. 5 seconds for the one rep of the wall ball. I don't know. I'm Here's my thing. How long do you think a regular wall ball rep takes? Like,
Not 5 seconds.
no, not 5 seconds for sure. But at the same time, it's a no rep, and you don't want it to become a strategy to skip that last rep if you're tired to just go and run for it. Um,
I want to say at this level, nobody's not going to be able to finish that last rep. Like
yeah,
it's not going to take them longer than 5 seconds. I could see how it might be an issue in maybe some of the like other categories where maybe you do have to wait like 20 seconds before you can finish that last rep.
yeah.
Um, I feel like it would have to be a very outstanding situation for one of these Elite 15 to be taking longer than 5 seconds to get that last rep in. So I do think it's fair. I know it's a short penalty. I understand that, but it like if they're leaving with one rep to go, I don't think that they're doing it by strategy. I think it's just like a misunderstanding of some sort, and I would hate to see somebody like drastically penalized for that.
And I think you're right when you're talking at the like the higher level, the Elite 15 level. The problem, like you just said, though, becomes if you have to have it in there because there's a big difference. I don't think you can have one penalty rule for, say, Elite 15 and another penalty rule for ages 35 to 40 and another one for ages 60. Like I
We just have a couple separate penalty rules for us in this
Yeah.
race. Um, there were things that we normally get time penalties for that were going to be just a straight DQ. Um, and that was definitely different than the age group waves. And it was things that I've never done ever in a race before, but still stressed me out that like, oh my God, if I do this, I'm going to get DQ'd, even though I've never ever done any of the things that they
What was
talked.
it? Like body checking or like
No, because
spitting
that's
on the
that was allowed in
floor?
the relay.
Yeah.
I had a front row seat for that body checking. Uh, but so missing a lap was an instant DQ. Missing a sled lane was an instant DQ. Like missing a lane of any things that I've never done. But I was like, what if I do it this time? I'm DQ.
I wonder why the switch to that. Like, I mean, the penalties for missing laps and missing lanes has been quite
Harsh.
severe.
Yeah, like
I,
you
I
wouldn't you wouldn't do it by strategy. So yeah, I'm not sure.
no, I'm not sure why they went to that for them. And I always question why do you change anything for World Championship away from the rest of the year?
Well, it would change the race dynamics though. Like if someone missed a lane in the sled and all of a sudden they're in the mix of the top, like the dynamics of the race changes though.
That's a good point. I didn't think of that. That is a good point.
I suppose. I don't know. There's been a couple of rules like I mean I've questioned with Hyrox and anytime there's an immediate DQ for something that is not abusive or anything like that. And yeah, maybe we'll talk about that after. But just mistakes and lanes missed and bad reps and for example, putting the sandbag down twice in the lunges as a DQ makes no freaking sense to me. I don't like that
Justice,
one.
Katie. Justice for Katie.
Yeah, that was the dumbest DQ of all time. Here's the thing, and I've questioned this about Hyrox before. I don't even know why that's a rule. Why you can't put the damn sandbag down. There's no advantage to putting the sandbag on the ground whatsoever,
My
other than
best
not blocking
guess
a lane.
is like it's yeah, that's my best guess is that you're in the way of people.
But guess
Um,
what? If you're just standing there with the sandbag, you're still in the fucking way.
yeah.
So,
I don't know. Maybe like make a courtesy rule. Like there's a courtesy rule of like fast people on the inside lane. Maybe make a courtesy rule that if you need to put the sandbag lamp down, like go
Go to
shuffle to the side,
yeah.
down on the side.
yeah, yeah, something like that would work. That one's always just driven me nuts. I've never got that. And when Katie
Except
got DQ'd for that
if
was horrible.
someone they might be preventing something in the future where if someone decides they need to take their sandbag off and they throw it.
Like a bucket.
Yeah. Like they huck it, 10 feet forward.
Well, Hyrox likes excitement. That kind of thing could add to the viewership.
Yeah. It
More
could.
more sandbag throwing drama. Um, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, 5 seconds in that situation, I think worked out very well. I think it was a fair penalty for that moment. I don't know how I would strategize that for the rest of the year. I would definitely make a something permanent in the rule book. I love permanent in the rule book. Um, so yeah, I would definitely readdress that. But I think I think everybody got where they should be. That's a very hard thing for me to say because I don't like saying, trying to predict what would have happened if this or what would have happened with that. But I do think that it worked out properly. And I do like that they at least decided it fast.
I think they handled it very well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and
And
it was decided very quickly.
yeah. The other one, the one I probably question more is the 3 seconds for leaving the ski erg early, to be honest. Because there's I don't know again, man, I haven't read the rule. I'll have to go through it again. But we had just with DECA where they just announced, okay, so this is the penalty for leaving this early. This is the penalty for leaving this early, and this is a DQ if you leave this early because you're just plain old cheating. So, I mean, did Viola leave 2 seconds early, or did she leave 15 seconds early? No, sorry, 2 meters early or 15 meters early, and it makes a difference. And are all those 3 second penalties? So that's the one that I'm more
I
skeptical.
don't know how early she left. I didn't ask her that. Um, but I agree it should be different based off of like how early somebody might leave. I'm gonna assume that it was probably less than 10 meters is my guess, but I don't know that for sure.
Yeah, I would think it was probably very close because you would assume she'd be skiing all the way till at least 15 to 10 meters to the end, at least. So, yeah, she probably had like did her last pull as she normally does and then let it go. And it just probably didn't click all the way before she went. She was just a little bit, hair trigger getting off there. And I'm a big fan of Viola, and I wouldn't think she would ever do anything untoward. So, but yeah, I question that penalty. That one I think needs to be ironed out and written down as per meter time base.
I'm
But
glad because I don't think it's currently in the rule book that it wasn't a harsher penalty, but I do think moving forwards, 3 seconds is not enough for something like that. I think you want to really discourage somebody from doing it. So, um, I would like to see like at least 15 seconds personally.
yeah,
Um, but because that wasn't something that was already there and something people were consciously making sure that they were doing to the T, I'm glad that she wasn't like severely penalized because it wasn't written anywhere.
yeah, and good on the judges to catch it. That's not an easy thing to catch when you have everybody moving that fast and that much going on. And if it was that close, like, yeah, you gotta be on your toes to catch that one. So good on them. Um, but I think speaking of the judge thing and back to the wall balls, I think it definitely needs to be changed because we don't need 2 and 3 judges chasing athletes across wall balls when other athletes might be trying to cross the finish line. And
One thing I would like to see changed with that is because of where I came in for the wall balls, I had like when I was finishing and I could see out of the corner of my eye, I was like, I don't know where I'm going to run to get to the end line without like making a giant U-turn to get around everybody, which is, I mean, I would have to go back and look, but I think that's what I did because like the judges are doing what they should be in terms of being close and make sure we're hitting depth. But they were also kind of in the way.
yeah, yeah. Someone was saying, and I don't remember who it was, that the whole rig should be turned 90 degrees so that when you guys come in, it's just a straight sprint to
Huh,
to the
that's
finish.
smart.
And I would give credit to whoever said it, but I'll be honest, I can't remember who it was. It was not me. But I'll take credit now. No, but it's an interesting idea. If
Yeah.
the rig is just turned 90 degrees, you all run in and you're right there.
And like the later athletes coming in are going to have to run slightly
Because they're going
further,
to fan out.
but like not that much.
No, no, no. And it would be no further than you guys trying to run around. The only other logical option to me is to actually just provide a running lane for the wall balls where you cannot run anywhere but this lane. Ergo, the judges can't be in it, the camera people can't be in it, the coaches can't be in it, and only the runners can be in it, and the runners cannot run anywhere else. And that way, everybody has to run the exact same distance through the exact same place. And then you could follow that until you get to the edge of the rig, and then it could just fan out. That way, you can have a little try to. Now, I don't like that though, because now you can't pass as you're running to the thing. So I don't like that one either. Just
Maybe just positioning, figuring out positioning of the judge where they can both see whether or not it's a good rep and also not be clotheslined by potentially a 6'2", 200-pound male coming through.
yeah. That'd be good. And it's hard from a judging position because I mean, obviously they want to be beside you to see that depth, right?
And you
And
want them kind of close to you so you can hear their
Yeah.
counting, or if you get a no rep.
or feel the tap when it's time to go.
Yeah, I feel like that's a part that like hasn't been mentioned is we technically were supposed to wait until we were tapped before we ran.
Yeah. Well, Ronkovic had a whole conversation with his judge. He's like, "Can I go? Can I go? Can I go? Can I go?" It's almost like, I know I'm okay, but just tell me I can go.
Right? He wasted over 5 seconds doing that. It would have been an
Mhm.
extra second penalty on top of.
Yeah, but after seeing what happened in the women's race, I'd be a little gun shy too.
It was smart.
Yeah. Um, I'm curious. So, who other completely other than, by the way, I'm gonna say this. Including your world championships and major wins and all that stuff, I personally count this and your Las Vegas race as your greatest performances, which is, I know neither one you won the championship, but to me they just both presented something amazing. I mean, this was just an amazing comeback. And the Vegas one, well, obviously that was something really cool. That was unbelievable. But
This one's definitely my favorite. I um so many things had to line up to be perfect in order for me to even be able to get on that start line. So the fact that like I was able to be there, is just something in itself. And I'm very grateful for that because just like where I was in my pregnancy, like I wasn't flying anymore at that point. So it was a drivable distance. It was where my family lives. It ended up being the same weekend that my baby shower was going to be in the same city. Like just so many things lined up so perfectly for that to even be a possibility.
yeah, so those ones for me just reign supreme. And they were like not just for you, but for anybody is awesome athletic accomplishments. Um, who stood out to you in this race? Like, because I know you're a fan as well as somebody who is obviously at the top of the athletic pool. What 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 got your attention? What stood out to you?
I mean, as I mentioned earlier, being able to kind of see Vivian making moves on different stations. I didn't really necessarily get to see her on the runs, but she was making purposeful moves on the stations, and it was like obviously I'm in the race, but at the same time it's very impressive to watch. And she just set herself up to be in a good spot for success. And that is not an easy thing to do with so many moving pieces and people using different strategies. So hers, I think, would probably be my number one that stood out. Obviously, like I'm biased towards like Lauren's hurt, but like biased towards Kate and Lauren because they're part of my team. So I am biased towards them. But then like somebody who's not on our team was Amy. Um, and it's not just this race, but like her whole season. Um, she's throwing down at a level and ability that like is nothing short of remarkable. Like I don't know because this is not her life. Like she has all these other things going on. She has 5 kids. to be able to do what she's doing, and be as successful as she is just something else. So it was watching back the race and seeing like her tactics of like how she was taking it out and just kind of like hanging back there and then like just slowly creeping up on the field. And then when we came out of the sled pull, she was with me, which was um, very helpful for me because she's a good runner. So like I am in a lot of discomfort, but I have somebody right next to me that can continue to push me, even though like I'm not running with the rest of the pack. I have somebody next to me that is a very fast runner, and that was super helpful.
Yeah, she's inspiring. Like just I mean, and let me straight out honest. Every woman in that field is inspiring. Like they're just all and they all the men in the women's field just seems so different. The women's field just seems like this group of friends all doing their best. And the men's field, well, they're battling. They're they're Jim Broing it up. And
And I will say, like, also sometimes, like, it comes naturally to some people to kind of be in front of a camera, or be like doing these interviews. Um, but for a lot of us, it doesn't. And it's like kind of awkward and uncomfortable. And I love racing, but my least favorite part of it is when they make us go up on that stage and they're calling us out. Like, I hate that. I hate, I just like let me go to the start line. Like I don't like, and I could feel that in Amy because I was kind of behind the scenes for some of her
mhm.
interviews as well. So just like that almost kindred spirit, like I could feel that she was also very uncomfortable with it. Um, so I'm drawn to that energy because I find it very similar to myself that she just like also just wants to be out there racing and not like all these cameras.
Did your entrance music be Why Can't We Be Friends? That would just be nice.
It was a song that I've used for one of my videos with Lily, but it was like a very like happy melody kind of holding hands sort of song.
Well, you didn't use the one that I suggested for Anthony, so I was a little disappointed.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right. I told him he should have you use a bitch better have my money. But you know,
You
whatever.
didn't tell me that.
You
Could
could
you
tell
imagine?
me. Well, I'll be honest. I knew a young girl who did Muay Thai who trained at a gym that I used to train at, and that's what her entrance music was when she went out to fight Muay Thai.
Yeah, probably not gonna happen, but I'll keep it in mind.
I'll get Beth to do it one day.
Oh, right. I have a question then bringing up Anthony and like the coach athlete relationship is really unique. And I don't think a lot of couples could really make it work. Like we've seen some very successful people, Sarah Hall is coached by Ryan Hall, like the American distance runners. And do you to make this work for you guys, like do you set boundaries around, when it's training time? We don't discuss this, or like, at this time, dinner time, whatever, we don't discuss this. Like, do you set boundaries around the relationship when it's time to train and elsewise, like to kind of make that work?
Um, Not necessarily boundaries and just kind of the way Anthony's mind works. Like he's so excited about just this whole world and his mind is always thinking about it. So I don't think he could necessarily turn off the ideas that are coming into his head and when he wants to vocalize and talk them out. So I don't ever expect him to. Like I don't ask him to not. I'm fine with that. Like if he has something pop up into his head and he wants to talk about it, like I'm willing to listen. I think why it works so well for us, or at least why it works well for me, is he understands any limitations I have. He knows my time constraints. He knows when I am and I'm not getting enough sleep. What like my day looks, whether or not we're in like a cycle with Lily where maybe she's having a string of bad days in a row where she's just not a happy camper. And if your child's not a happy camper, like you can't just be going off and doing anything you want. Like you have to figure out what's going on with her. So like kind of adjusting things on the fly, and being there in the moment is very helpful, where I think it's hard to do that with a coach that maybe is not on such a personal level. So like, yeah, sure, there's tons of challenges, but there's also so many benefits to it, in terms of like it's as personalized as it could possibly be.
It's always fun seeing your videos with her, and I would the recent treadmill one was very good, and I've decided that Lily and Dylan's boy August are going to be the 2040 mixed doubles champion. I think I
I
think
think
I think
that's
we've got it locked. I've actually bet on it in Vegas already. It's paying very well.
good. 2040. Gosh, that sounds
2040.
okay, but it's not.
No, oh well. Beth and I can both tell you it goes quick.
Yeah.
Like
Um, but I guess like in terms of that relationship too, there's very few people that I am like super open with, and he's probably the only one where like if I don't like something, I'm gonna tell him. Like if I don't like something and I'm talking with like a friend, like usually I am trying to be as courteous and politically correct as possible. But if there's something in the programming that I don't think is right or is not going to benefit me, I'm not going to be quiet about it. Like I'm going to tell him and I'm going to explain why, and we're going to figure out like what might be a better option.
So then maybe even for you and your personality, having him as your coach might also be the best situation for you.
Yeah. And again, and that is like probably all individual. Like maybe for me it works really well. I would say that it might not work well for many others in terms of like having their significant other also being their coach and programmer.
I'm gonna say for the majority of others. Like I know my wife and I are on the same page about so many things and get along famously well. We have a fantastic relationship, but no way could either one of us coach each other. There'd be way too much backlash, like way too much. No, 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 I would do it this way. No,
Mhm.
it would be nuts. But I think it shows I think it shows the effectiveness and the skill put into the program that you guys have created, and also to you as an athlete, where you can tune into what's it, and sometimes maybe even defer and say, okay, this is what the program is, this is what we got to do. Where and then at the same time go, yeah, I know that this is not right for me. So I think it's a credit to you guys, both as a relationship as a couple and as a coach and an athlete. I think that's amazing.
It's I mean it's been working so far. We like really only started it after Lily came through because I used to have significantly more time to kind of do whatever I wanted. So like when time challenges came up, I needed more structure, and that's like when the whole coach athlete relationship started.
It seems to me like your program has become very popular and is taking off and just seems to keep climbing.
Community's building. It's really cool to see. Um,
I've heard nothing but great reviews.
we have a lot of like really incredible just people. Like forget about what they do as athletes. We've like got a real like really great group
Nice.
join.
Well, I know you have some mothering to do. Lily will probably be waking up soon. Beth, do you got anything else left for Lauren for tonight?
No, I don't. Thanks so much, Lauren, for joining us. I didn't know that we had the opportunity to talk to you tonight, so I'm really happy that we had that chance. So, yeah, congrats, for your race in Nice. It was really, truly exciting to watch you come back. So definitely one of the stories of the weekend for us. So pleasure having you on as always.
When's your next race? Are you doing another RX1 next?
Uh, not that I know of for sure it's on the schedule, but I'm the DECA Ultra in July is my next race.
I'm considering going.
Yeah.
Um, but I am 100% doing the Utah Beast, which is only the day before.
Oh
So
yeah.
I don't know if my body can handle. I'm not gonna drop the Beast. I really, really want to do the Beast. So I don't know if I can also handle the Deca in the same weekend. I haven't fully decided, but I've been contemplating it.
Now I'm
I do
curious
know
to,
some people doing that double.
wow.
Uh-huh.
It's a lot to ask of your body because the Utah Beast is not that I've done a ton of Beast, but it's a hard one. It's very challenging. I know I'm super tired after it.
What kind of travel is that too from Utah to Fort Wayne?
There's no direct flights, so I think minimum 7 hours.
Oh,
That is a tough ask. Those two races with a 7 hour flight
I would say most likely I won't be at it, but it's not out of the question. Like I haven't completely thrown it to the side. I'm 100% doing the Utah Spartan though. I will do that.
that'll be exciting. That'll be awesome. I wonder what coach has to say about that one.
You
Awesome.
know,
Well, Lauren, thank you again. And to everybody, thanks for tuning in. Take care. We'll see you next week.
see you next week.